Hello, 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 everyone. How are you? Oh, that's weird. I'm getting an echo for some reason. What is causing the echo? Oh, I know what it is. I'm dumb and had my own Twitch open. Look at this meme I made. We're waiting for Melanie right now, but look at this fucking meme I made. I'm doing great right now, actually. I'm feeling very good. A little bit chilly today, oddly enough, which is why I'm wearing my nice coat inside, but it feels great. Okay, that's good. That was just me. It was just me because I was dumb and had my fucking stream going on in the background. Here, look. You guys can enjoy this. Okay, you're in okay, wait. We don't need to hold on. Oh, okay. Oh, I don't ever actually use this. Let's see. Here, I'll pull you in. Let's see. All right, this should work. You should be, let's see. Wait, there we go. Okay, you should be in now. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I'm going to put, here we go. I have this. Are you going to do camera? Because you should, because I can have you up on camera. Wait, we're in, I think you can do video here. So you should be able to turn on video in here. If not, I can call you directly. Okay, I'll call you then. I called you a couple times, but I think you have do not disturb on. So let me call you then. 1 second. Yay! Okay, now it's working. Perfect. So let's full screen you. I'm actually figuring it out. I actually know how to like do some of this stuff. Although it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, look. Here we go. Look at this. We got you on stream. Okay, let me just adjust this. Of course, go for it. I don't mind that at all. Let me just. All right, this should be fine. Oh, here we go. Why is it being like this? I need to extend it this way. Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to adjust it so that I can it's really weird. It's really awkward how you have to do Discord. Here, I'll turn off the Discord stream for a second. We'll just look at my cool meme. And then once you're ready to go on cam, you just let me know. Oh, is there no sound coming? Okay, that should be fixed now. All right. Thank you for letting me know. I'm still working out the settings with this new setup I have for Discord. I'm getting an echo from your side. There, Melanie. I think it's picking up my stream. I don't know if you have that.
Oh, I'm dumb and have all my stuff in the wrong place.
Oh, you're good. Hi, everybody. 1 second. I'll mute you for now.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. All right, echo is solved. We are here. We are ready to talk. Okay, so last night I had a lot of people asking me about Korea. And I literally told them, I was like, I am not an expert. I know not very much. It's just something that's not my purview. So people were saying, go find somebody who does. And I said, okay, perfect, I will. And I did, which is you, because you know a lot of shit and you're really fucking smart. So thank you for coming on today.
No, I'm not.
You are fucking smart.
I feel like I have the agency to talk about this because I actually am from Korea. My position is actually really unique. I was born in Korea, so I was born in Busan, but I am a Korean adoptee. So there's like this extra layer of sort of like, do I have the authority to like talk about Korea, because like I didn't like grow up there. I don't like know the internalized like culture of what it's like to be Korean, I guess. But that's what education is for. Like you can read books, you can go on the internet. Like it's not like this. Like I feel that this sort of like thing that like other Asian people do is like we gatekeep each other from the culture because we feel like, well, if you're not from there, you're not allowed to expand upon that. It happens with like everyone. It's particularly like a POC issue, but I don't want to get into that too much.
Oh, that's fine. No, I mean, I think there's a lot of, I mean, again, I am not a ID poll extremist. You very much know that I very strongly, and am currently devoting myself to building an arc of anti class reductionist content. But I'm not an id poll extremist. I don't believe that just having been from a place or just belonging to a specific group gives you immediate sovereignty over the issue, so to say. I just think that the likelihood of not having the same biases. So, for example, a non-Korean American talking about Korea is much more likely to be subject to a lot of biases that they don't even know about. And so that's my position on it. And so, yeah, and I think that's a very common thing. But again, I don't think that you should be invalidated just
I feel
because
I think the
you
only
grew
reason
up
why
there.
I feel like oh no, the only reason why I feel like I have agency is because I was born there, and like my circumstances of my birth are directly tied to like what U.S. imperialism does.
Yeah,
Like
that was
it's
something
not like
that I was reading about this morning, actually, which was like the adoption thing is really, really common, as I understand it. Is that correct?
so. I was adopted out of an adoption agency called Holt International. Holt International was founded in
Wait, that's literally the one I
1945.
was reading about.
It was founded by Christians who wanted to save Koreans. Now, here's the caveat. The Koreans that they originally were adopting out were not Koreans. They were Koreans that were born of the result of childbirth by war rape or US soldier or Japanese occupiers.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically because Korea was going through a culture shock and they wanted their dismembered population to encompass only of Koreans, not ethnic Japanese, not white American Korean. They just wanted it. And so, like, you can look at that if you want to be like, and the thing is people will look at that and will go, well, this is ethno nationalism or this is like eugenics. I'm like, well, like, I mean, a lot of that is a cultural thing, and I'm not trying to say that like opinions. So like, I will admit, and this is a thing that has always very much confused me and it frustrates me. Um, Koreans ethnically have a very, very, very ethno ultranationalist sort of like slant to a lot of their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
This boils down to historical precedent because we have like lived in this particular part of the world. Depending on anthropologically speaking, like depending on what source you go by, we have been there from like 10 to 6,000 years. So, and we've never moved from that place.
Right.
So that sort of intergenerational trauma of just always living there and never really leaving that part, like we've never really invaded any other country. Like if you want to Google every single Korean like war conflict from like zero like 2000 BC to now, there might be like one where we like invaded like the like Mongolia or Manchuria or some shit, but like most of it wasn't because we wanted like resources. It was the natural human thing of let's make more places to go because we're running out of room. So a lot of this is just like, and we're one of the few people like, and that's why there is. I don't think that like we're indigenous by any means, but like a lot of the sort of differences is like if you ask someone who is like from Hong Kong or from Taiwan or someone who's Cantonese or from Shanghai, they don't consider themselves Han Chinese. They consider themselves like a different language, a different ethnic group. Koreans are just Koreans, and we only have lived in Korea, so we sort of like don't have that like disconnect of competing with other ethnic groups within a state or non-state apparatus. That's a lot of why the cultural nationalism exists, is because historically, when you're the same people forever, you just want to be the same people forever. And I don't think it's a supremacist sort of way. I think it can be framed that way. Like you can make it ultra ethno nationalist.
Oh
I will
yeah.
go on the record and say that I don't believe in that. Like I don't like, and a lot of a Juche. So like if you want to talk about like the DPRK for example, Juche Songang literally means, or Sen Song literally means self-reliance. That's all it means in Korean. It just means it goes back to the sort of cultural trauma of we have to do everything ourselves to maintain sort of our place in this world, because our independence has never been determined by us. It's always been determined by outside actors. So like Korea was invaded by China, Korea was invaded by Japan and the United States, and like Dutch people went there, like the Portuguese. Like there's always been sort of this like weird quasi fascination with this part of Asia from outsider perspective.
I think a lot of it has to do with a perceived need for regional security, quote unquote. You know what I mean? It's because of the struggles between the U.S. and China and Russia, it's like a natural location for conflict, like, or an unnatural location for conflict, whichever way you want to word it. But it's just like these imperial powers are all struggling against each other, and they have no consideration for the people that live in the strategic land masses that they want to go after. Right? Is that an accurate? That seems to me what is a problem. And I don't know. At least for me, you mentioned like a couple minutes ago, you feel like you don't feel like it's a discussion of like indigenous people, but I don't know. To me, at least from my exterior experience, you know, not really not really having any sort of again, you know, my situation where it's like I don't fucking know where I am. I'm not some indigenous. I'm not anything. I just fucking
Oh yeah, I don't
literally
consider,
bummed
like,
my way
Koreans
across the
indigenous. Like I don't.
But it
I
sounds
don't,
to me like that's a very similar struggle. It sounds to me like,
Yeah,
hey,
we're
there's
not.
like 6 different imperial powers that have just been fucking us for like the last like long period of history. I don't know exactly how many years. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, and it's not like, and the thing is like we're not like we don't live in a settler colonial state. So like I mean I live in one now presently. I live in the United States, but like Korea is not a settler colonial state. It's just a landmass that we've lived forever.
Right.
You know, like it's so intrinsically different, and I think that's why like Koreans are so defensive about it culturally, is because it's the only thing we have. It's the only thing we know. You know, all
Yeah.
of our diaspora that has been spread out from Korea is a result of the policies of other nations. And like that's fine. Like I'm all for globalization, people meeting each other. This is not turning out to be like a Korea centric, like it's everyone. It's like it's hard to talk about Korean history because it's very depressing, it's very sad, and it sounds like it's victim blamey, and it's like if you don't really understand culture, like it's weird because like if you're Chinese, you can talk about different cultural ethnic groups because China is a very diverse country. A lot of people think that it's just this monolith, like you are
Right.
Chinese, you are communist, you
Oh,
are the CCP.
it's a huge country. It's like
So complicated. There's so
yeah.
many things that there's lots of moving parts. Korea doesn't have as many moving parts.
Hmm.
So the history isn't as diverse in terms of like, I mean, Korean history is diverse in of itself in accordance to Koreans,
Right,
but outside
internally.
of
Yeah.
Korea, but in an international sort of spectrum, Korea is not really that significantly important because Korea. So a lot of this is so Korea for the longest time and now like jokingly, um, has been like called like the Hermit Kingdom. So Korea was like one of those countries that practiced like large amounts of isolationism,
Hmm.
and a lot of it just had to deal with like there was the warring states period in China, and there was like the feudal like shogunate wars in Japan, all around the same time in the 1300s when like the Great Empire formed. Um, and so you have all these groups that are basically fighting each other. The Korean people finally like get a unified country, so they're just like, we don't have any reason. Like we've unified the country in the 1300s. Like we've made this new kingdom. There's no fucking point. We don't have to invade anyone. We don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Like meanwhile, like Japan and China, like their dynamics operate on a principle of warring states. Like that's the thing is like the Japanese Empire and the Chinese Communist Party, like the unifications of China from and Japan and like these big historical moments from
Hmm.
fractured states dramatically changes your view of how you operate as a country. So like it's because Japan and China are made up of different ethnic groups. It's easier for them to just be like it's easier for them to fight each other. And so like that's sort of that ties into leftism too. Like how like we have all these different tendencies. So how do we create one cohesive thing without making it like a state or a stateless apparatus? It's the
Right.
same sort of deal. So like people operate on the same functional sort of wavelength. Um and so I guess you could paint this as like and like I said again, like it's difficult to talk about Korea because like we're very one note. There's only like one thing here. And for some reason, despite a country with a very simplistic history, a very start and an end, a very set place in where it stands geopolitically, no one seems to know a fuck about any of the history or any of the reasons why it is the way it is. It's really odd to me.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
So here's an interesting thing. Now, okay, so I wanted to comment on 2 things. One, the first one that you mentioned, was this idea that it's like one note, which is like, I feel like that's something that we've almost been talking about a lot on my stream, but like not directly necessarily, where it's like the histories of so many countries in the world are basically defined because of American intervention or another imperial country's intervention, where their entire history becomes bent around that of another country just because of imperial aggression. Do you feel like that's something that's an accurate statement to say about Korea?
Yeah. I feel like, well, and like the thing is like I am really bad at like I don't know what Korea would do if the Korean War didn't happen, or if like the isolationist policies like weren't in place. I don't know. I'm not here to talk about whataboutisms and
Right,
hypotheticals.
right.
Like, and I feel like a lot of people really love to fixate on that. Like, what if the North didn't do X? It's always fixated on like what did the Koreans not do as people. It's not
Right.
about like it sort of detaches the idea that America is culpable of doing things. I mean, even the Korean War is called the Forgotten War because
Right.
people just forgot that it happened. Even though like the Korean War actually set the precedent for future anti-imperialist policy of the United States.
Now here's an
The idea of
opportunity. I would like
like
you, if you're comfortable with it, can you give the chat basically a brief summary of what the Korean War was about and why it was so pivotal in the sort of like history of Korea?
so
Because I
the
feel a lot
Korean
of people
War.
don't know that. So.
Okay, so like I guess if anyone doesn't know, so in a TLDR, the Korean War is not really I hate that it's called the Korean War. Basically, it was a Korean civil conflict. So after World War II, so Japan was annexed by Japan, from 1910. It actually goes a little bit further back.
Maybe
Actually,
Korea was annexed by Japan.
yes, it was annexed by Japan, and then occupied by Japan from 1910 to about 1945. Basically, during this occupation, Japan's nationalism and Japan's empire sort of ideals of the world of being Japanese, because Japan is also a very monolithic society too. So they also like that's the thing is like a lot of these ethno tensions are not just Korean related. There's something that just happens a lot in these parts of the countries, these parts of the world, because all these cultural ties are really important to people. Japan felt humiliated after the Westerners kind of came in and bullied the shit out of them. Like when the Westerners basically opened the doors, like when Oliver Hazard Perry, I can't, it was like 1886 or like the Meiji Restoration, that broke the spirit of the Japanese people. The Meiji Restoration was like a pivotal point of how Japan basically felt. They felt like they were completely out of like Western perspectives because like they basically America was kind of going through two big things in that era. The Civil War was kind of ending. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing in Britain. Like a bunch of 1800 dead philosophers that we all love and care about were talking about things about like overthrowing states. Like the world was basically going through so much shit all at once.
Right.
And so you have a people that because of the isolationist viewpoints, so a lot of what happened, this actually goes back a little bit further. So I have to like this is the problem with talking about Korea is you cannot talk about Korea without talking about Japan. You cannot talk about Japan without talking about imperialism because it's so fucking pivotal to why it's all happened.
Well, feel free to go as much of a history lecture as you'd like. There's literally people were asking me for it last night, and I know from looking at the chat right now that a lot of people who were asking me about it last night are here now. So this is your opportunity to teach a whole bunch of people who are really wanting to learn the history.
Yeah, there's just so much. There's so much. So there was a lot of Dutch and Portuguese exhibitions that like came to. So the West actually, fun fact, didn't know anything about Asia officially till the Dutch and the Portuguese started selling the world. The Dutch and the Portuguese actually started essentially the modern, what we would call like the modern global imperialist sort of operative motive. So like Portugal and the Dutch like expeditionary forces didn't necessarily fight people or do things that were as cruel, but they sort of added the precedent that like Europe can just, because Europe has the ability to sail around the world and look at stuff and do the things that they do, they basically just set that sort of precedent for every other country because every other country saw that. So like when you see a really small nation doing something successful, you as another nation want to get in on it. So then you have all these like sort of competing powers because Europe is just a very competitive place. It's always been that way. Europe is also like a fractured part of the world. That's also why the European Union is such a big deal to a lot of people.
Well, and they had like a fuck ton of, at that time in history, we're talking some of the most influential trade and incredibly rich trade organizations that could just go into a place and offer what, you know, incredible riches, you know what I mean, at what cost, you know what I mean, and they would buy themselves incredible political power. Yeah,
no, the political, like that was how like all of the church reforms were coming out in the 1600s, like it basically, like, so if you notice, so the fun part is you notice imperialism gets ramped up whenever there's like big social political changes, it's just sort of how the world works. It's the reaction. Revolution is essentially reaction to whatever status quo MO you have operating currently. So, for example, the big leftist movement on the internet is a direct result of the failed U.S. policies of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and the reaction to Donald Trump being elected.
Mm-hmm.
It's a global thing. The reaction to communism's growth in the world is a direct reaction to populism.
It's a right-wing populism, correct? That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right-wing populism. So every pivotal moment in history, in terms of like how it seesaws, it's just a development of another sort of thing, which seems like a very Captain Obvious kind of statement, but like you have to watch for these moments in history, because like a lot of people just think that when these moments happen, they're not important. And so we have to like talk about each individual moment when something happens in history and look at it and go, what did this set for the rest of the next 100 years? And then that's how we re-examine and how we don't make mistakes. You know, the Armenian Genocide, for example, that happened. No one talked about it. No one in that historical perspective cared, because the Western viewpoint, even in the 1900s, was still very Western. Who cares about millions of dead Armenians? And then when the Jews were actually being executed in Germany, in a white nation, a lot of people started paying attention. It's because a lot of the world culture is driven by white cultural hegemony and imperialism. So a lot of these subjects will always get talked about. It's like how the Korean War is forgotten, because it was the Asian War that happened right after after the majority European War. The Japanese conflict in the Pacific is considered by a lot of like neo-fascists and like a lot of liberals that's just like a thing to just talk about, but not actually something to historically examine.
Yeah, and something that I find interesting is how a lot of the discussions of sort of Western atrocities, for example, like the Holocaust, are only in the popular purview through a mixture of incredible activist pressure and you know what I mean? People showing it everywhere, but also the ones that even do manage to reach prominence are often out of convenience. You see what I mean? Because, for example, like you mentioned with the Armenian Genocide, Americans don't give a fuck about that. In fact, Armenian Genocide denial still exists to this day. And, I mean, of course, Holocaust denial also exists. But on a mainstream level, you can make Germany look, the enemy of America at that time, look like a monster. You know, it sucks that you also gotta, prop up people who are arguing against America. But hey, look, we can also use this as a way to make our enemies look bad. Do you see what I mean? It's like the ones that ever reach the mainstream awareness. Like, everybody knows about the Holocaust. Everybody knows what happened in the Holocaust. Obviously a horrible thing with tons of people who have tried forever to get that mainstreamed. But so many other equally bad or very, very bad events don't get there because it's also not aligning with the mainstream interest. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It's also
what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's also like kind of ridiculous, because at the same time, like, the Armenian Genocide is like, people like say that you're like woke scolding if you're talking about it, because like the thing is like the Jews that people fixated on Europe were mainly white. Like, the idea of like the Jewish like heritage groups being outside of the United States like wasn't taken into account until the creation of Israel, until Zionism was becoming a thing. But that's a whole nother subject.
Well, that works though. Again, it works against it to broaden it out. Or to take it out one step. It works against all of our intersectional interests to forget the stories of any oppressed group, if that makes sense. So yes, it is absolutely good. 1000%. Literally, I find the awareness of the Holocaust to be possibly one of the most important, like, current historical, like, awarenesses. The fact that many Americans in the imperial core are aware of these atrocities, and that we didn't actually, and many are aware that we didn't actually do that much to help those people in Germany. But
the Soviet Union like liberated like more camps than like any
way
other
more
country.
By far.
And like
We didn't
everyone
even give a
thinks
shit.
that so fun fact, my I like to say this to just dunk on people because it's really funny. And so like two things that I did. I bought a Juche party flag today.
I saw that. I saw that.
So now everyone's gonna think that I'm like standing the DPRK every time they look at my
But you like that, don't you? You can't get mad when people mistake you for a tanky. You intentionally mistake yourself for a tanky.
Oh fuck yeah, no. Every time I like go, I hate this aesthetic. It's really stupid. I just start doing it because the reactions from people are so good.
Okay,
like,
but to be fair,
so
the Juche flag is awesome. It looks really
no, the
cool.
Juche
It's a
symbol
totally
is one of
good
the
one.
no, the Juche symbol is one of the coolest fucking communist symbols of all time.
It's really
so
good.
simple. It's
Yeah.
like the most powerful energy. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh god, what was I saying? Oh, okay, so funny story. My grandfather, so like my father fought actually in World War II.
Oh wow.
He was in the he was in the Battle of the Bulge in the Austrian Forest and was actually captured by the Nazis and held as a prisoner of war until 1945. And his camp was liberated by the Soviets. And if my father's dad did not come back to the States, I would not have been born. So thank you. The Soviet Union saved my life.
Yay. I mean, hey, that's fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, so there's my LARP here. So I get to be a LARPer. Like I'm also Korean, so I get to buy a Juche flag. So if everyone wants to make fun of me for being a LARPer, I have actually more background and reputation to be a fucking LARPer. I have shot AK-47s and dumped magazines. Okay.
I mean, I can't. I also have. I actually have a picture. I will post this picture to my Discord later.
Have you shot one? Have you shot a machine gun though?
I have
shot like a fully auto.
No, actually.
You have to.
Wait, hold on. Have I? Yes, I have. It was a
trigger and Kalashnikov go burr.
Yeah, although the one okay, so here's a funny story. We'll take a little sidestep just to tell a funny story. So so I'll start with this. My grandfather was also in World War II. Fought for the Americans and came back and was well known among my family for saying that he believed that he fought for the wrong side of the war. So yeah, my family has a dark history with that. In fact, my one of the like heirlooms that I was allowed to sort of hold and look at from my family was a stolen Nazi dagger. That was
like a Hitler Youth or
like
an SS?
It was an SS dagger where it had the SS symbol in the little pommel, and it had like a wire wrapped around the blade with like a white thing, and then a bunch of patches and shit. And keep in mind that like and of course I was able to we weren't able to use it because it wasn't in good enough condition anymore, but my grandfather's paratroopers Thompson was also one of the things that my dad still had. But my grandfather was as you can tell, anybody who would say that they fought for the wrong side of the war when they fought to fight Nazi Germany is a pretty fucked up mentally individual.
Yeah, no, that sucks.
It's pretty fucked.
that
like
sucks.
it was really weird. When I was younger, and of course, like a lot of this just flew over my head and didn't succeed as a form of indoctrination. But I mean, like my dad took me to like Nuremberg and stuff like that. So I've been to Nuremberg. I've seen where the Nazis were hung in trial and where they're
I've been to Dachau. I've been to the camp that started it all.
Oh shit! Wow. So yeah, we've both seen our fair share.
It's fucking okay. Like okay. God,
Yeah, it's fucking dark, isn't it? Yeah, that's pretty dark, isn't it?
Dachau was like the saddest fucking experience of my life. Like we had to walk up like and you can only see like 25, like a fourth of the camp.
Right.
Like yeah. So we had to walk up like it's like 3 miles or 1 mile, I don't know, of like gravel road that the prisoners had to walk on. So they basically had to walk on just a gravel road in bare feet for like 3 miles and walk up to the sign that says was it like Abek Mak whatever, I don't know, it's like work will set you free.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, let me tell you real quick on that. Let me tell you the absolute funniest and most horrific story that I've ever experienced in the corporate America, and it's really relevant. You might not understand how at first. So, when I used to work in rental car sales, one of my best friends worked for a competitive company. So like nobody gave a shit. None of the workers even cared. We literally So
like
like
hefty versus like
yeah, it was Hertz was where my friend
Hertz
worked.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
so I worked for Enterprise, and my friend worked for Hertz. I'm telling this
So
story. I know you're gonna cringe, gynotype, but it's gonna happen. So this is it's the most painful story you can ever imagine. So
God damn it.
my friend was really amazing, and he had a really stupid regional manager. I mean, truly stupid. Like not actually like malignantly stupid, but not like actually like they weren't like an open racist or anything. Well, they would often send out these like they were really gung-ho about like corporate like mandatory fun, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we got to send out the newsletter and everybody read the newsletter. And so they would send out this newsletter. Well, they got into the habit of putting quotes. One night my friend comes out from behind the Hertz desk, and it was always slow because I worked in a small state, and so at this time of year, and so he comes out and he's like, looks pale as a ghost. And I'm like, hey, you okay? He's like, no. I'm like, what happened? He's like, my manager is an idiot. Come look at this. Goes back and brings me back behind the desk, and we go and look at the newsletter. The newsletter is an encouraging message, like a grind culture, like keep working, always keep working. And at the bottom, it has a quote from the Diary of Anne Frank. Right? So quote from the Diary of Anne Frank, which is work will set you free. This is quoted from the Diary of Anne Frank telling people what was written on the Nazi on the work camps. Yes, I'm not kidding you. This actually happened. I've seen this with my own eyes. They sent out they quoted the Diary of Anne Frank to try and be like profound, but what they quoted was a quote of a quote. It was Anne Frank telling the story about seeing this message over the, you know, or hearing about this message over the concentration camps. I'm not fucking kidding you.
I just take that up to just like Westerners or like white people just being stupid and not knowing things.
Right? It's the most Michael Scott, like, oh yeah, let me I don't know anything about history, so I'm just gonna look up inspirational quotes about work.
It's either like dumb American, like Western, or just like white folks that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's
That
like
was-
I hate that, because like I hate that it's this obvious. Like we do dumb shit, but like at least people laugh at it. Like this is like, I don't know, man. This is like insulting.
Americans do hate history. I agree.
Yeah, Americans fucking hate history.
Americans
Okay,
hate
so
history.
let's go back to history. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. No, this is good. It keeps the pace going, so don't worry.
So essentially, essentially a lot of the things that happened. So like the Portuguese and like specifically the Dutch expeditions, like when they went to all these new places. Like so here's a fun fact. Let me explain how good and bad this was. So the Dutch went to Japan, right, in the 1600s, and they did the trading about. So the Dutch actually Japan was an isolationist country. They were not allowed to trade with the Japanese because of I don't know if it was customs issues, but they were like allowed to trade if they would dress up in like weird Dutch clothes and like play jester characters. Like they were allowed to make. They basically the feudal samurai kings and lords basically said, you can trade with us if you just act stupid. Like basically cringe on main and then we'll give you things.
So it's basically like oh, like it's like weird cultural appropriation, but it's like if you want to trade with our people, you need to dress up in your cultures like
this is a fucking thing that happened. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so they like taught the Japanese how to like do maths, which they stole from the Arabs like 200 years before. You know what I mean? So like it's
calculus and stuff.
Like, yeah. So basically like it's just knowledge moving around the world. So like, but the thing is like, I don't mind if another culture gets on a boat and goes to another culture's place and shares knowledge. It only gets dicey when you do that, but do it in a not so good way, TM.
Right.
So
well, it's never free when you're working with imperial trade organizations.
Yeah, and
that
I don't
are
think
run by the crown.
Trying to be imperialist. I mean, I know they did imperial. I'd have to look up because they did start like
Dutch imperialism is a very dark history. I will warn you that.
I mean, like what I'm saying is like in the initial part. This is like
happy.
This is like the happy, fluffy stuff. Like this.
Yeah, they started with trade.
Yeah, they started just by trading as regular ass people, and then the Dutch cocoa trade, and then rubber, and then slave. Yeah, we all know it gets really bad. Yeah, it gets really bad.
So anyway,
the Japanese, so tempura. Everyone likes tempura, right? Like, tempura
Yeah,
shrimp,
yeah, nice and
or batter,
flaky and
panko crumbs, all
yeah,
those things.
yum. Gotta love it.
So the art of the Japanese tempura art, the art of frying stuff, actually comes from the Dutch. The Dutch taught them how to fry stuff, and so Japan was like, okay, and then that's how they fry stuff.
Well,
Fried
that's
food is
similar
not
with beef
originally an
too,
Asian concept.
because Japan didn't have cows until
Mhm.
they were brought from traders, and then
Yep.
of course Japan went on to master the cooking of steaks with and the breeding of good steak, which is like the Kobe beef is like
Yeah.
genuinely like uh, I've heard it what was it? It was like it's described as like jokingly as like riding on a baby cow in a field of flowers and then just deciding that you're ready to eat the cow and just going that's Kobe beef. But and that was mastered by Japan, even though they didn't start with cows. I mean, that's how it goes, right?
So like these are all just like positive examples of just like trading things. So the opposite is when you trade with someone, and a lot of it is also history. So there's lots of accounts of the Dutch interacting with the Japanese that weren't bad.
Mhm.
There's a lot of Portuguese and like Dutch accounts of describing the Asian people that lived there that were kind of just weird. They
Right.
were very like, yeah, they're very like, who the like, it's very much like, what the fuck are these people?
Mhm.
You know. So the Americans actually sent an expedition to Korea, and I actually have to look up the year because it's actually kind of important. But there was a Korean. It was in the 1800s, and in Korea, the Americans landed a boat. It was a Marine Expeditionary Force. There was about like 200 people or something like that, and they were all armed. And they showed up at I can't remember if it's an island or a port. I really will have to find everything as I'm trying to look it up. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, if there's like minutia that you can't grab, that's fine. We're what's most important is the core narrative. So don't stress yourself over minutia.
Oh,
If you
okay.
don't if you don't want to. You can if you want to, but don't feel like you have to.
I should probably pull it up. But so basically like, Korean. So basically like the I
Okay.
go from like being really academic and wordy to just like trying to be like not as academic and wordy.
I mean, I think people like that about you, so don't worry about it.
So I
Don't
try to
stress
go back and forth. So essentially the Americans showed up and they were like, hey, we just want to like hang out and learn stuff and not be like assholes.
it. Yeah.
And I don't know if this was before or after they interacted in Japan, I guess, because they kind of forced. Okay, so like the Meiji Restoration was basically Oliver Hazard Perry showed up in Japan with a bunch of boats with guns, and the Japanese were like, "Well, fuck, we can't do anything." They basically were gonna fire upon the Japanese. So they basically said, "If you don't open the country, we're basically just gonna shoot all your shit up." And so they were like, "All right, well, fuck, we can't do anything. We'll just let these nerds in." And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So the Korean expedition was kind of the same way. Except when the Americans got there, the Koreans were kind of like please go away. Like they were basically trying to say no.
Yeah.
And then the Americans, according to this is how it's always phrased. So if you actually go and look every single interaction between Europeans and the first and other people, so like First Nation people or countries that or people that live in other countries, especially like during expeditionary periods in history.
Yeah.
Notice how many times you see the phrase "Yes, thank
Gongwa
you."
Island. Did I
Yes.
say that? Gongwa?
Yeah. Name how many times you see the phrases miscommunication, good faith, it was them, not us,
Yeah.
or we gave them something good and they reacted negatively.
Right.
Like that is how Western history frames every interaction. It can't frame if a people fights back, it can never be framed as defensive.
Right.
It can, and that defensiveness is always viewed as, well, they just don't like globalism or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Like
smell
that's a very new
ideology.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, it's
Yeah. It's one of those things that's like, this was something Bad Empanada recently did a video about the Bengal Famine, and that's a huge part of that, of just like consistent historians just like essentially non-indigenous and white British historians going back and just being so incredibly favorable, and then that essentially becoming canonized because they were the people who wrote the sort of seminal pieces on that history, and it becomes canonized that like despite them putting their own bias into this, it's like the way history works is history builds upon other history, and so these things get really ingrained in a really bad way.
And the reason why this is especially ingrained Oh, okay. So this was a Navy expedition of like 1,400 people.
Damn,
So it was
that's
a big
huge.
landing,
Yeah.
and the landing party was made up of about 100 Marines and like 6 12-pound howitzers. So like they actually brought like legitimate like go to war shit with them.
So yeah, that's more or less like someone knocking at your door, and holding a shotgun to your chest.
Yeah, and the island, the actual like island is actually really small. Um, it like I think like it's only like so the square mileage is about 100 square miles. And it's right off the coast of Incheon. It's very small. Like I think like 70,000 people live there. Um, it's uh, it's not really known for anything,
Yeah.
basically.
Besides that,
Yeah, it's literally just an island. I don't really know. It's like it's not contested by like the north or the south. It's just an island. Yeah, I don't know. I thought there was more significance to it, but yeah. Incheon is also like a really big port. So like before like so like Incheon was always a port, so I assume they wanted to go there because they thought that was like what the closest like port of authority was. So the reason why this particular spot is so contingent is because the Japanese, the expeditionary force that actually went to Korea came from Japan.
mm,
And a lot of the sort of intergenerational defensiveness of Korean ideology, like in the form of Juche or in the form of like just Korean like anti-U.S. sentiment, stems from the U.S. occupation, stems from the occupation of Japan, the occupation of Japan by the United States, and then the occupation of Korea by people in the government that used to work under the that worked in that were part of the occupied Japanese government. Park Chung-hee is actually like who's a dictator in South Korea. So,
mm.
fun fact that no one knows: South Korea was ran by dictatorships from about 1950 to about 2008 when the elections were. There was like a president like or whatever that won a Nobel Peace Prize. They won a Nobel Peace Prize for humanities because I guess because it was the first time we didn't have like a dictatorship.
Yeah.
So they like won I guess they just like they won.
And that was the if I understand, and again, I am not amazingly up to snuff on Korean history, but as I understand it, it was the dictator was essentially installed and legitimized by the Americans via the Korean War.
Yeah.
Where when
No. Well, so the guy that I mentioned was actually in charge during so the guy that was in charge of Korea during the Korean War was actually Sigmund Rhee.
Oh, okay, maybe I'm mixing up my timelines.
Yeah, Park Chung-hee and Sigmund Rhee are different people. Sigmund Rhee is also basically a CIA cop, so it doesn't matter. Also, each Korea is like there's a difference between like the First Republic, the Second Republic, the specific military rule. So like the American history books talk about the military rule being from 1961 to 1963, but it actually goes into the Third Republic during like the era of Vietnam.
Okay.
But Park Chung-hee basically was a major general, and he was assassinated actually in 1979. He basically did a political coup d'etat, and the result of the episode, like, so the Korean CIA was actually officially created.
Oh yeah, I read
Under
about that too.
Yeah,
It was
there's jokes that it's always existed
yeah.
because anti-communist or anti-nationalist Korean hit squads like were used during the Korean War and actually like used routinely in like the first like the People's Republic of Korea.
Mhm.
So there were a lot of people that basically U.S. soldiers and U.S. soldiers and Korean sympathizers to the Americans would drive around in squads and go to villages. And if they found out the villagers were taking food from the Koreans from the north or the Chinese that were helping them, they would bring them all out of their houses and they would execute them. Like
It's
this, like women
incredibly
and
fucked.
children. Yeah, so if you take food, you're executed. Like you are not allowed to fraternize with the enemy, and like that's why the conflict has so many wounds. And
Yeah.
a lot of the reason why the North and the South hate each other is not because of like it has nothing to do with like ideology. It has nothing to do with because like communists or it's or like it's literally just blood that got shed through really bad situations led by other people.
Yeah,
Like it was a lot of people pulling the strings. And like if
and
you actually
something that
look at
Natalie is bringing up, and Natalie Revolts in chat has brought up, they have concentration camps that you can visit today, and that's the thing. I think people maybe forget that this was what we're talking about was in the like 1960s, is what you were saying, correct? Like 1960s into 1970s. Like this is very recent comparatively.
yeah, it's like no, like there were like so like basically from Korea's entire existence has been controlled basically through quasi like CIA slash like US government, like ex-Japanese colonialists.
Mhm.
There's probably like more like so many people in Korea like over the years have just disappeared and been killed. It's really common actually. Like to say that the North is this evil dictatorship that just murders people is a complete non sequitur, because you have to examine like the literal military dictatorships that would round people up for basically just questioning like why the country is the way it is,
Yeah.
or like if you even question the narrative as a South Korean, quote unquote. So like if you're a South Korean citizen and you're like, hey, I don't really understand like why this conflict is happening, like people like will like KCIA agents will like try and like silence you. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
And this isn't me being like a tinfoil hat nerd. Like this is like there's evidence. You can Google this stuff into like a
It's
basic
publicly
Google
available.
search.
Yep.
It's all publicly available history that no one seems to want to care or read for. They just like this idea because like Korean history doesn't matter until like I want to say like now, like when did fucking Overwatch come out? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like no one like K-pop, like no one gives a fuck about any of the trauma, any of the history, any of the things that like, and I'm not saying you have to like put time and effort into it, but just being aware I think is important of
Yeah.
why the DPRK is the way the DPRK is. The DPRK is a, so here's my summary. I gotta like do this again so I can talk about this more because
Of
I feel
course.
like I'm
We can
missing
literally,
stuff.
if you want to talk about this again, if you feel like, listen, it's
There's
fine.
just there's so
you
fucking
have
I'm actually
space here whenever you want to talk about it, okay?
What's amazing is I actually got asked by a lot of people
Good.
over the past like couple hours asking me to come on programs, do podcasts, just talk about the DPRK. So I feel like I'm gonna repeat a lot of the
Demon
same
Mama
stuff.
was the number one. Me.
Yeah, you're the first in line. So you're here at the very beginning. When
I'm the
this all
first.
happened. Yeah, good job, Liv. I'm glad you're like so excited. So yeah, you were the first person actually. You're the first person to ask me to speak. So that's good
I
for
was
you.
streaming last night in what was supposed to be a chill stream. Okay, to be fair, for me, it ended up being still a relatively chill stream. But I ended up streaming for like 6 hours last night, and we had so many questions. And one of the themes that actually came up that wasn't directly related to Korea, because I said I wanted to have you on and have you talk about it because I'm not smart enough. I don't know. But one of the things that we did discuss was, and this is something that comes up a lot on my channel, which is, like how our current status quo is kept like ideologically in place by amnesia, by the fact that nobody remembers the history, that nobody remembers the very like uncontested facts even of history. Like you don't even have to dive into the like minutia. Like for example, the best example I think is the Iraq War. And I think a lot of like millennials and Zoom and like older end Zoomers are now realizing like, oh shit, like we lived through this, but we were we were too young to do anything about it. But like nobody's been talking about this. Like the Iraq War everybody knows it was bad, that it was bad. But I think nobody really realizes just how bad it really was. And that's because of like cultural historical amnesia. History isn't taught. History isn't put as an important subject in political discussion. And as a result, context is sucked out of the conversation. And it allows for these things like, again, like Iraq War apologia in 2020, where I'm just like, how it's indefensible. It's fucking indefensible. The sheer atrocity of the Iraq War. And this is just talking about the Iraq War. This goes for so many other issues where we have our culture here in the US just has no value on history. And so I think that any attempt to bring context back into the discussion is like so valuable right now.
So someone actually, I want to talk about this before I say anything. So someone in the comments actually talked about how when they were in the Marine Corps, they actually trained with people.
Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, if you want to read it out, you
Okay.
can.
This is from the Angry Infidel. I will say this: when I was in the Marine Corps, I trained with 7 ROK Marines in the summer of 2002. None of these men were over 5'5", and they out-trained, outran, out-everything every single person in our unit. South Korean Marines will humble the hell out of any American quote-unquote badass in a quick minute. I have never felt so minuscule than when I saw a 5'2", 115-pound, 40-year-old Korean man outrun one of the fittest Marines I've ever known. that is an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that, Angry Infidel.
I feel like I'm tall. Like I was like before transition, 5'10".
Hey, that's still
And I was
small for
born
me.
in
I'm 6'2". I'm a
I was
big.
born in '93. Hey, we're all hey. My entire people group is short, so I actually ended up being tall compared to like both genders. All right, my parents were
Everyone is
tall.
short compared to me. I always
No,
joke that I'm like a titan, and it is very awkward to be this tall. Not
you
only
know
does
Nikki. You know Nikki Tutorials.
yeah, I know Nikki
She's like
Tutorials.
she's like 6'3". Did you see her
Really?
like sit next to Ellen? Like there's a picture of her like sitting in a chair next to Ellen. Girl's fucking huge. Like not in like I'm not like trying to body shame her. She's
No,
just a
that's
big.
awesome. I mean,
She's like
obviously,
she's
as
not
somebody
just
who's
like
6'2", like
oh yeah no like she's a big girl. Like
yeah,
she's
that's
like
awesome.
6'2".
I
She'll
did not know
fuck.
that.
I mean honestly she'd fuck someone up. I don't know.
Fuck yeah.
Um
So
so
we were at the point where you were talking about the essentially the formation of the Korean CIA.
yeah, so basically the Korean CIA is responsible for a lot of the propaganda. And it's interesting because this sort of propaganda narrative plays into the military dictatorship sort of aspect of like controlling everything.
Yeah.
Um like so basically like what this is called the Supreme Council for National Reconstruction. This was a nationalistic like military junta that basically just came in and said this is what we want to do. This was trying to transfer the power from the American military government over to Korea. That's kind of where this all comes from. Um, so this council basically formed out of Korean nationalism for sort of transferring this power out. And a lot of these people that were involved in the U.S. government military planning of how to construct how to construct South Korea's current sort of geopolitical government were also people that were involved in the colonization and sort of like reintegration of Japan as well.
Mm.
So you have a bunch of people that essentially are a part of Japan's ex-fascist groups. Like there were a lot of Japan fascists that were like, hey, like we'll help the Americans, and then they ended up helping the Americans, and they ended up helping the Koreans because they lived there.
Right.
So they were like, there's this idea that like when you're an American and you don't know anything about Koreans and you want to ask how do these people are involved, like what do you do with them? Well, the Japanese occupied them for 45 minutes or for occupied them for 35 years.
Yeah.
There must be you must know. So a lot of Japanese officers, generals, people involved in the Japanese nationalist movement and the Japanese empire and the fascists ended up actually being in political power within Korea. And
Isn't that crazy?
a lot of Koreans didn't like this. Like we were all aware of it too. A lot of the Korean presidents, like there were so many fucking assassinations taking place in the ROK from like 1950 to like 1955 to about the 1980s. The year I was born in '93, like students were getting like executed by like cops, and like people are throwing Molotov cocktails through federal buildings.
I was
like,
3 when that was
deficit.
happening. So that's really recent history. I mean, comparatively, like I think people forget that.
Like if you look at a picture of like the city that I was born in, it looks like a big gray desolate, like it looks like San Pedro Harbor. It's just a boring gray little town. And then if you look at Busan now, it's this big giant city. Like they fucking named an Overwatch after it. That's like Diva's fucking map. Like
Yeah.
it's such a juxtaposition to what it was like, I want to say, when I was born.
So if I can summarize real quick for in chat. So basically what happened is you had an American influenced intelligence group influence an incredible amount of political aggression and violence within Korea. Then as time went on, America deferred to the conquerors of Korea, the vicious conquering of Korea that was done by Japan, essentially. Is that correct?
Yeah, and
And
so it's interesting.
they asked those people, they asked the aggressors, like, how do we run this? How do we help run this country? Like, it's like,
So
that's terrible.
yeah, yeah. So the South Koreans basic. So Park Chung Hee's council basically performed a military coup because they thought that the liberation aristocrats, like a lot of Koreans wanted unification. They were like, fuck no. And like, so Sigmund Rhee's group was like, fuck no, we don't want unification. Unification's for fucking nerds. And they were like, and they were doing this nationalist thing where they were like, you know, Korea was just an agrarian farmland, but the Japanese like made it more industrial. Well, the Japanese made it more industrial because they essentially just turned it into an industrial economy colony.
Right.
That's all Korea was, because it was next to Manchuria. Manchuria and Korea were just the industrial economies for Japan. That's what they were.
So Japan basically said, hey, we're going to take over this landmass because we can, and we're going to build our factories there so that we don't have to have factories in our backyard. Essentially.
Yeah, because they needed war materials to be produced out of Japan because of the bombings. They also needed war materials to be produced just so they had a foothold in Manchuria. I mean, it was an empire strategy.
Right.
And so you have all these people that thought the conservative. So at this point in time, the conservative politicians believed in the Korean independence movement. These were people that hated the Japanese annexation in 1910. Now, this is generational trauma. So all the stuff that I'm talking about is feelings that have been since the occupation. Now, granted, this is 1961. This hasn't changed anything.
Yeah, people are still alive who would have witnessed these things firsthand.
It's generational.
Right.
That's the thing that's interesting about Korean history is the DPRK, the generations of people that are born in the DPRK, they keep learning the history. The reason why they are so angry at the imperialism they're watching across the border by the United States to their brothers and sisters in the South is because the Japanese occupation and how it treated the South did not actually they remember this. So they don't feel that they're fighting for Juche or communism. They feel like they're fighting for the Hall of Korea. The Juche stance is not to like be a first strike method. It's basically self-defense. It's basically, if you guys do something, we'll fire back. I don't think Kim Jong-un would ever fire a nuclear missile in anger at the United States. I had someone in my Twitter mentions, someone was like, well, I'm Chamorro and I live in Guam, and like, you defending the DPRK means you just like hate Guamanians and like you're racist. And I was like, what kind of reach is this? North Korea never targeted Guam. Like, yeah, they shoot missiles to just show that they can shoot a missile all the way to the United States, because in their head, if they can touch America, maybe America will just leave.
Or at least it's something they can hold against. And you know, it's funny that you're commenting on that, because that's yet another thing that comes up in my channel a lot too, which is, you know, and you've been here when this has happened, when people come into my chat and they do the Venezuela, the Vuvuzela argument, they come in and they do that. And it's again, it's one of these examples of where they have no historical context and they are unable to recognize that that the state of the DPRK, like North Korea, is in a literal direct response to what's the right word? Interference. I don't know if it's interference or like world policing or I mean, literally just direct imperial action by the US. Like, these are responses to that. What you feel about them independent of that is, you know, that's a whole other discussion. But as a state that exists, they did this to survive because of us, because of our country.
Yeah, and like South Korea's and so that's actually how I sum North and South Korea up, as countries, because I don't like so this is my stances. If anyone wants to know, I don't like the words North and South Korea. I don't like calling a monolith of an ethnic group directionally different. There is not, because that directional difference creates otherness by basically saying these are the Northerners, these are the Southerners. What is so different? We have the same culture, the same monetary system, the same values, the same everything. We are the same people, like almost down to a T. There's nothing separating North Koreans from South Koreans in terms of like people, if you want to go by that way. So
the humans,
the hubris of it all.
Yeah.
I just like to say that most Koreans, if you ask us, we will always defaultly say we are from Korea. Most of us don't say South Korea. Most of us don't say, like, most people say the ROK.
Yeah.
Most people say the DPRK. Most Koreans that do say South Korea are probably really Americanized, so they just say South and North Korea. I
Yeah.
can't help that. I can't change those people. But if you're non-Korean, like most non-Koreans will say Korea and Korean, and that's it. Like I don't
Yeah.
call myself an American. I call myself a Korean American. I was born in Korea.
One of my
I
best
try to
friends
make
in
that
college, I can attest to that being the case. One of my best friends in college, it was Korean, and she never she didn't make the same distinctions like we would here when we're talking about it here in the United States, like
Yeah, we
on
don't,
a general
because
level. Like when in colloquial conversation here in the United States, the terms North and South Korea are really super common. But I don't feel like, I mean, at least, and this is something I guess what I'm saying is this is my experience as well, just as an outsider talking to Koreans that I knew in college, which I knew a lot of because a lot of Koreans went to the school that I went to.
we're all academics.
Well, I mean,
we're all
that's
learning
another thing I
people.
meant to ask about, and I think this might prove an interesting discussion for everyone in chat too. And maybe you don't, maybe this is not your purview, but if it's something you know about, maybe you can. Christianity is incredibly common as a religion in ROK in Korea in general. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
if it's actually a DPRK thing because of, but
so the reason why the DPRK took the idea of state atheism is not because they don't think you can't practice religion, but because the idea of they saw what was happening to religious extremism, like within like Japanese Shinto Buddhism, like how Japanese Shinto Buddhism was like radicalized and turned into a fascist talking point. How American Christians would come to Korea and like the Jesuits would they would torture people.
yeah,
And they would force Christianity down a lot of people's throats. Korean Christianity has a lot of the cults, like the Moonies, a lot of those like that weird cult that like got everyone sick in
yeah,
Korea, like in the South or whatever. I can't remember the city. Like y'all have heard it. It was the epicenter of the Korean COVID crisis. That was a fucking cult that split off from a Christian separatist group.
yep,
Like a lot of these people, like Koreans' religious obsession with Christianity is very much a forced thing. One of the I have to find dates. So the reason why I say Korea has an indigenous tie is we have an indigenous traditional religion, actually. Um, actually, yeah, the only way, yeah, Natalie made. There's, like I said, Nat, like there's so many fucking things to actually talk about. I could talk about this fucking forever, I swear.
yeah. Go for it.
It's like a giant rabbit hole of ideas.
We're only on hour 1, and I can stream for like 2 more hours probably, realistically. So
I know I might have to go in like 40 minutes or so because I have
that's
to do
fine.
a Discord meeting for an org thing that I have to do
Well,
because
hey,
we're trying to
that's
fix
practice.
the server. Yeah, but because I actually lead it, so I have to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's a Korean traditional indigenous religion, and it's actually labeled an indigenous religion because it's shamanism. It actually, depending on who you ask, it's considered not like it's not prehistoric. It's kind of like prehistory. Like it's considered before recorded. It's like one of those like religious practices that didn't have body until like it was recorded.
Right.
So
So it existed long before
Yes,
proper, before like proper written history existed, where there
yes,
was
it
only
predated
oral
the writing.
tradition. Right.
Yeah, it predates a writing system. It's just another further anecdote
yeah.
to say, yeah, pagan kind
Yep.
of, yeah. It's another anecdote to basically prove we've been here for fucking ever.
Yeah.
Like and that's the thing is like I hate saying this shit because it sounds like I'm being this like weird ethno-Juche nationalist, and it's not. It's like this is essential history that you have to understand to contextualize why the intergenerational trauma runs so fucking deep for us.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a lot of sympathy to the struggles of indigenous people, because as someone who can't because I don't really consider like Koreans to be indigenous. I feel like we're the closest Asiatic group to say that we could be, maybe, but that's an argument that I don't want to get into. Like I don't want to say that I don't claim an indigenous background or a First Nation background or anything, but I will say that like my particular ethnicity has a penance of like understanding what it's like to live in an area for forever, and then having a bunch of Westerners and white people and imperialists and foreigners come in and basically tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Korean shamans originally were all women. The idea of third genders and the idea of like existential existence, like you were just given a name and that was it. Like it was a very, very, very progressive religious movement. And the church especially wanted to, like, when the Christian missionaries came, they wanted to snuff it out because it was too progressive, because it was like, it was different. You got a bunch of women in charge, like, dancing around, and like, so it's interesting. It's very spiritual. So like, what are the core? I will have to type. Here, I'll link it in chat here. But so this spiritual practice is like very much like it's very much rooted in, how do I explain this simply? It's rooted in like a lot of, not like dance, but like it's a thing that people like. It's a totally different kind of worship. It's like, it's very much physical. It's very much something that like you have to do yourself. It involves a lot of like really weird things. It was a religion that was dying because a lot of conservative Koreans thought that like it would just not work. Here, I posted the link in chat.
Oh, that's actually super interesting.
Yeah, so basically it's like it's a very traditional cultural thing that almost got wiped out. And so the reason why a lot of Koreans are like why they're so sacred about it is because it's a cultural thing. And when cultural things in Korea get wiped out, people get very defensive. And so the church just kind of and the church just kind of took that part. And a lot of Koreans, so Natalie actually made a point here. So if you want to read Natalie's comment about during the Japanese occupation.
Yeah, sure. Natalie Revolt says, during the Japanese occupation, almost the only way to be educated if you were not extremely wealthy or a part of the collaborator class, aka directly collaborating with the U.S., was to go to U.S.-run missionary schools. And that's something I read about, too, in preparation for this.
Education was controlled only by the church. Right. And that mentality of you go to the church, you stay in certain families to be educated is a Korean thing that happens today. That's sort of like where that whole thing is like, you go to school, you got to go to the wealthiest, most elite school. It's because wealth and class equals the only way to make it in Korea. So everyone, if you want to learn that in a more nuanced detail, watch fucking Parasite. Yes. Parasite talks all about that concept.
The Parasite was...
The Parasite house, you want to know a fun fact? This might actually
tell me. I fucking love that movie.
The Parasite house represents different eras of Korea.
Oh.
The basement at the very bottom with the sub people is the Japanese occupation. The middle part is the part of Korea during the 1970s, 80s, and 90s during the times of troubles. And the very part on the top is Korea in the 21st century, and how it deals with its ideas of class and the remnants of trauma from the occupation.
That's amazing.
And you would never know this if no one ever told you.
That's true.
The movie wasn't made for Americans. It was made for Koreans. Yeah. And I hate saying that. Like Bong Joon-ho did not care about winning an Oscar.
Yeah.
He just none of us fucking care. We just kind of want to be left alone. We just kind of want to live in our own place. And I know, like I said, it sounds incredulously purist and nationalistic, and I hate it. I don't like that because...
Well, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessary. I mean, this was what I talked with Zanzi about.
And I feel like we're just super... I feel like we're super proud all the time, and we're really defensive about our positions all the time culturally. Like, I get mad about anytime anyone mentions anything about Korea that I know that is wrong, I get very fucking angry about it, whether it's the North or it's the South, just because it's like, it's my home, it's where I'm from, it's like my people, it's like everything to me. Like, it's not just this place that is a name on a map.
Yeah.
It's like something that we're all tied to. And like, even though I'm an adoptee, my adoption and my life in a settler colonial state like the United States is directly tied to that intergenerational trauma of the occupation and the war.
Yeah, that's a very direct thing. In fact, it was in one of the most prominent sections of like I said, I was doing some prep before stream. One of the most prominent things I saw, or most prominent narratives I saw was like orphans of the war would be placed in religious orphanages that directly worked with sometimes literally U.S. corporations in order to just basically export the orphans to America. And I'm like, that's so fucked. Like, and that's so fucked on so many levels, where it's like, oh yeah, you have American corporations which ties into... It's so crazy how much this all ties into the discussion I had with fucking Zanzi the other day about American religion, and how American religion at this point, especially Protestantism and evangelical Christianity, which, as I understand it, is very, very popular in Korea.
It's very, very popular in Korea.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is essentially an ideology of it's just a religion that props up capitalism at this point, like to an incredible degree.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you get to see my stream with Zanzi?
No, I'll have to watch the VOD.
You should.
So
It's a long talk. And I did put it up on YouTube, but it's a long talk. But it talks about this specifically, and you might actually find it very fascinating. From my perspective of growing up in one of these churches that was like that, where they would go and they would go to adoption agencies overseas and like establish connections. It's so weird. And and again, it's all a part of their, like, it is an ideological apparatus. Anywhere that they go, they push the same ideology, the same sort of like business minded, ideology with them, and it's really amazing that, like, it's just incredible how these things link up directly.
So the business aspect is really interesting. So like the sort of like generational trauma that I about is like, so Koreans during the occupation were like, we were forced to be part of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the part about the families that are below in the parasite house, they are the working class. Korea, that's why like the DPRK is not ruled by like Kim Jong-un, it's just ruled by the Workers' Party of Korea.
Right.
Like the entire like People's Republic of Korea, the first socialist movement in Korea was a workers' movement. The anarchist group in Manchuria was a workers' movement. They like every movement, every independence movement in Korea was a movement of the bottom always trying to like it was a very bottom to a top structure.
And you posted an image about this, didn't you, earlier today?
Yeah. Regardless of ideology, actually. So like Korean anarchists still very much believed in a bottom to top structure. Juche is very much a bottom to top structure. So you could take this from like a Korean person that is involved in like Kim Jong-un or Kim Il-sung or whatever thought you want, or whether it's Korean anarchists, we all very much view everything from the bottom to the top. And because the idea of that class disparity is directly tied to every single instance of Korean history always being fixated on you having to go from the bottom to the top in terms of wealth. So like during the occupation, like I think like Natalie pointed out, is like the only way to be successful was to like be involved in religion or like have wealth and money. Like owning a business is like a thing that Korean Americans like really aspire to in the United States. Like that's why so many Koreans, like when they come to America, they want to be businesses. Yeah, it's a fun picture.
Wait, where
anyway,
the hell did it go? Oh no, where'd it go?
Disappeared.
Ah!
We can talk about this picture real quick.
Yeah, I wanted to bring it up on screen because
sure.
it seems
like
really relevant.
I'm jumping through like a million things. I wanted this to be way more structured, but God, I forgot there's so much to talk about.
Don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. I think again, chat, if you have any questions or confusions, please tell us so that we can address them, because that's what this is here for. I don't want to completely block it, but here, I'll just blow this up and we can talk over it for now, I guess. Here. So, this image right here, I'm going to bring it up on stream and just put it over both of us. So this is what we're looking at right here. This is the United States of America and the organization of the government in comparison to how the DPRK is structured as far as positions go. So if you want to explain this to people, yeah, I can actually link this picture. Here, I'll link it directly to Melanie's post about it. Here we go. Yeah, maybe that would be an easier... Well, no, I think this is probably the best way to do it right now. It's kind of janked, but whatever. All right, so here. Do you want to explain this image for everyone to the best of your ability?
Give me a second. I have to say something to someone who looks me up.
Sure.
So basically what this boils down to is... So, like... America likes to say that it's this super democratic nation, but like our party system, for example, so like our party system is very like
fucked.
When you vote one, you pretty much get everything. That's why people care about this two-party system so much. It's like people feel like it's this contingent of you have to basically vote Republican or vote Democrat or whatever in order to like save, you know, whatever the status of the union is. So essentially, who's ever in power is the president, and if he has all his cards in the right place, he essentially has absolute control. Like ostensibly absolute control. If you look at this from like a Marxist-Leninist perspective, so like the DPRK is set up as a Marxist-Leninist org. So like the actual like prime minister of the entire cabinet is a different person. And then so like the head of the military and the head of the Workers' Party is always going to be the person who leads the Politburo. Is always going to be like Kim Jong Un. So Kim Jong Un is not the president of Korea. He is just head of the party, and whoever leads the party leads the country because the party leads the country because it's the Workers' Party, and he just
Right.
happens to be the leader of the party, so he is just in charge. But he doesn't make rules and decisions for people because everyone else has to ostensibly vote. Now, depending on how your Marxist-Leninist org works, to the most part, it operates on the principle of democratic centralism. So there's a Politburo of a bunch of people that basically put things to a vote, and then the central committee gets to vote on those things, and then it goes, and then the rest of the people in the DPRK get a single vote on that system. That's a very simple way of explaining the Marxist-Leninist org system. I should probably I need to get better at explaining democratic centralism and
No,
vanguardism
that's
to
fine.
people that don't actually understand the ML line. Um,
So the way that, if I can try and summarize this, this image, what we have here is, here in the United States, you have the executive head, the head of state, the head of the military, the head of the party, and the highest legislative power is all, oh, and in fact, the head of the foreign policy. All of these people are the same person, Donald Trump. This is not the case in the DPRK. In the DPRK, Kim Jong-un, what he actually is in charge of is being the head of the party and the head of the military, which is indeed an incredibly powerful position. But it is not. He has other people and other. I mean, maybe they'll be loyal, whatever. But he has other people in different positions who also wield power. So, and in fact, it is. If it's, maybe this is not 100% accurate, but there is, at least in the structure, U.S. is structured to give much more power to the president, even than you would imagine would be given to Kim Jong-un. Is that accurate? Like, as far as
yes,
structure goes.
yes. So as far as structure, like, so like tech. Okay, so his sister. So let's talk. Okay, we're gonna do a brief talk, Reno. Let's talk about Kim Yo Jong, our wonderful simp that we are simping. Can we put her on fucking screen? Let's
Oh, you
do
want me to
this.
put her up? All right.
Yes,
Let me
let's
get
put her
her.
up. Let's simp the fuck out of
Where can I
Korean.
find a good solid image here?
Do the one where she's running with the toast in her mouth.
The toast? Okay, wait.
Yes,
How do I
yes.
find this? Can you find it
might
for
be
me
on-
and send it to me?
It might be on my Twitter.
Oh, is it? I didn't see it immediately, but maybe it
It's
is.
buried. It's buried there.
Here, wait. It's probably under media. Let me see if I can get it. The toast? I didn't see this one. I don't
She's
think.
running with a toast in her mouth. It's so good.
Last night I logged in after being on my stream for like hours, and I was just like, oh, wow, the entire website has changed. Everybody's talking about the same thing, but I don't know anything about this.
Anyway,
right
so anyway,
I can't find it at all. Damn.
So Natalie Revolts is correct. I don't know. So Natalie Revolts is correct. Kim Yong Hong is director of the is department director of the Central Committee. So her actual job within the North Korean state apparatus is she's in charge of propaganda. Tanky ass Marxist Leninist terms for like org names sound really cringy. So like her job is like fuck, what is her job, like her actual like job title? I don't know if Natalie has it or I need to look it up real quick, but like her actual job is like really funny, like it's kind of memeable. She's like I'm the head of like the ministry of like the Center for Propaganda Committee, and that her job is literally right now just trying to do unification work, and she's been doing like a lot of stuff with president in South Korea, like their okay president. Like they've actually been working together and going to meetings to try and unify the country. Like she's actually a big
There you go. I got it.
I need to run with a toast picture and take a picture of it.
You need to do that. You definitely need to do that.
But anyway, so like so now you have the only two Korean women that matter in your life. Me and simp girl over here. God, holy shit, I'm playing into it. I need to stop. I explicitly have been telling people to not do this, but fuck, I'm only doing this because I feel like I can do this because I'm actually this.
Yeah, I think you're
I'm
allowed.
actually a Korean girl.
I think you're allowed.
But no, but in all seriousness, if people are like actually like horny posting or saying gross things about like this individual, they need to stop. Like it's just not good. Like, please don't do it. Like, I'm joking because it's just this picture is funny, but it's not something people should actually do.
Yeah.
I really do actually condone this. But so her position is basically, so she was reelected as an alternate Politburo member because her aunt is on the Politburo. And so if her aunt, because her aunt is sick, so if her aunt can't perform her duties in the Central Committee, it actually changes the democratic voting system. It actually kind of like tilts it in a different favor that's very undemocratic. So if we put someone that knows the systems and knows the power into the Central Committee, it's better for the people of the nation of the Workers' Party to vote on that option. Now, a lot of people view that as like, well, this is nepotism, and this is like because she's actually married to another party member's like kid,
Right.
and so people look at this as like an aristocracy. I'm like, that's not true. Like, if the people trust this country, now you could get into propaganda and like because I'm not trying to speak about the bad, like I know the DPRK has allegedly done bad things.
Well, I mean,
know,
also just before we
and,
get
like,
too far in it, like, again, we live in the United States where Donald Trump has appointed his own son-in-law in charge of the entire coronavirus response. So we don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to frowning or shaming nepotism. Like,
I know it's
yeah,
just so
yeah.
hard for me to bring that up because people, that's everyone's gotcha. It's just like, well, North Korea, I'm like, but like the dynasty system in the United States, like look at the fucking Clintons, look at the fucking Kennedys, like
Right.
I mean, what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
look at Trump's entire family, and like I don't understand this. Like why is it so wrong when another nation does it? And like I am fair to critique this. I do.
Well, I mean,
not
it can
like
also be
dynasty
wrong, but
families.
you can also point out the fact that, like, hey, this is like a corrupt structure, but that doesn't mean that you can just offhand
You are
dismiss a
completely
country.
ignoring all the context of how the structure functions.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's still more like if you want to put like a Marxist-Leninist org on paper is more democratic than the entire US party system. Do I have issues with like the Marxist-Leninist org system? Fuck yes, I do. I have issues with how central committees are ran. Yes, like I am someone that loves the PSL. Like my girlfriend used to be part of the Canadian Communist Party. Like, yes, we still really do love these things. You know, call me a tanky all you want. Call me an authoritarian. Bring it on, motherfuckers. Like, I love that shit. But I honestly, I have lots of critiques of this system and how it works. I don't necessarily like everything the DPRK does, but to completely just underhand and throw it under the bus and say that it's not a valid thing to exist and not even look at your own fucking systems that clearly are just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah.
Like the DPR, if you combine Korea's combined coronavirus response, whether it's the DPRKs or the ROKs, we have significantly less fucking cases, and we've done way better.
Yeah. Yeah. We're totally fucked. Like, I this is the thing that I keep harping on whenever people come in here and have, you know, super pro America takes, where I'm just like, you do realize that we are literally we are the wealthiest nation in the world, and it is our own stupidity and inability to run a government that has made us the worst, like the country in the world that has handled it the worst. Like, with the exception of maybe Iran, which is our fault. Like, we are currently sanctioning Iran harder than we were before. Like, that's fucked. So yeah, again, I always find that it's funny to me because it's that thought terminating thing, right? It's like, oh well, if we can point and laugh at you know, the DPRK government, and I mean, okay, you know, some of it's fair, whatever. There's a limit to where you can go, okay, this is goofy, but you can't really point and laugh at the DPRK at the same time as having Donald Trump and his family literally running the entire government. I mean, it's really bad. Like, the state of nepotism right now is really bad. And again, I remind people, Donald Trump still hasn't divested from any of his businesses. So he's running a country where his decisions are directly making him money. So, yeah. The Angry Infidel says, damn it, if you answered my question about Kim Jong-un's sister, I missed it. My puppy just had... Oh, no! My puppy just had explosive poop all over my bed.
Oh, what was your
I
question?
missed it. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry,
Okay.
Angry Infidel.
No, I'll answer it. So, like, what she does is, so, like, I need to find her actual title, and I'm going to read it out loud, I think, because it's stupid. Like, her actual, like, DPRK title is, like, really... I don't know why. Because she's running with this toast in her mouth, so, like, it's even more funny. Okay, so as of November 2014, the last held position she had was Vice Director of the Workers' Party's Propaganda and Agitation Department. So she essentially does what I do when I go on Twitch streams and talk about communism. We are the same. We are both running with toast. Um, except I'm not eating the stupid salad that I had on my desk because I don't know where my fork is. So I'm not eating salad or running with toast. God damn it, this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna run with this. This is really funny. This is my new angle now. We are the same because I love agitation. I love going on streams and saying like, oh fuck, Stalin's a good Christian boy who did nothing wrong. He was as brown as the Georgia ground. Like I love this shit so much. Holy shit, I love pissing off me.
I do find it funny that I don't know. People are so selective about their outrage. It's really ridiculous. Again, you know me. I more or less I don't know. I feel like most of the like a vast majority of Twitter like radiation, like Twitter drama radiation just passes through me. And it's only when it reaches like an incredibly high level that I'm like, "Rah!" But it's like, but for the most part, I'm just like, I don't fucking care. People say stupid shit all the time. People say stupid incendiary shit all the time. Being a leftist alone is incendiary in America. So whatever. People say incendiary shit all the time. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. I just think it's funny because like my position is always I don't know. What her position basically means is she is just in charge of like this old propaganda thing. So what she is in charge of, basically the propaganda arm is basically now called the Publicity and Information Department. And it's not called Propaganda and Agitation Department anymore. They've changed the name because so Kim Jong-un has had this big thing of he's like deciding like his granddad and his dad named all of their fucking organizations after dumb LARPy shit that like no one understands. Like imagine walking into a central committee meeting with a bunch of like Koreans that are trying to learn about Juche or whatever, or even like it's the same thing. Imagine as me a Marxist-Leninist walking in and being like, "Hey kids, do you want to learn about like the I can't think of let me look up like a fucking Soviet
Yeah,
Union.
well, I mean that's the thing, right? I mean there
Like-
was kind of a there kind of has been a long time this
like propaganda and agitation sounds stupid, so they officially rechanged it in February of 2018 to just be Publicity and Information Department. That's literally just like that's the same thing of like that's so if the North Koreans can take old LARPy bad Leninist phrases and make them cool and fun for kids to like do the Zoomer thing, fucking leftists can do it too, you cowards. Like that's what this boils down to. Like if the fucking DPRK can do it, then why can't you get out of your fucking ivory ass tower and stop like saying theory at people? I don't want to read your fucking 1 out of 65 thread page about why Lenin was right. I don't care.
I know
like,
who that's about.
You have to reach people in the middle. If other Marxist-Leninist countries see that this is a thing, then why can't fucking like Westerners do it?
There's
like,
a good question. Angry Infidel asks, is it true that if Kim Jong-un dies, then she will be in charge of the party?
So that's a complicated question. So I know my current knowledge of the system is in terms of they've always kept it in the family, but I know that Kim Jong-un has changed it to where he wants it to not be that way. So I actually don't know. Comrade Natalie might know. I actually have to double check where the line of succession is because it's a very big point of contention within the Central Committee in the Workers' Party of Korea. So I actually don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, I've been like looking at this. I'm like, I have no idea. Like last night, I thought that she was already in charge. Like just that was my impression.
No, because people don't know how Marxist-Leninist orgs works. Like people don't know how like communism works. Like this a lot of this was coming from like other leftists and liberals and people like center left. Like this is a thing. Like like I said, like I love the PSL. I love like Black Hammer. Like shout out to leftist orgs. I love Marxist-Leninism. It's my fucking ideology, man. Like I make the jokes, I love the LARP. Like I played Red Alert 2 and like shot V2 rockets at things. Like I said, I can do this all day, but like as much as I joke with this rhetoric, I like to at least try and educate people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I also think that's reflected in your ability to not only make a lot of friends online, but also be regularly invited back because you are able to talk about things in a way that makes sense to people. So
I actually wanted to ask you, like, why am I the fucking likable to like all these fucking people that like have virulently went on Twitter rampages for weeks saying fuck the MLs, fuck the tankies, fuck the red guards, and like everyone's just like, well, this person's okay.
If you want to okay, so all right, it's complicated, and this is my impression as somebody who just watches a lot of streams. One, you're friends with a lot of people who are friends with a lot of other people, which is always a good thing, a good position to find yourself.
I don't know how though, because everyone hates each other. Like all my time.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit. What the heck's going on here? Hold on 1 second. Let me just check something real quick. Let me just reset the call real quick. Or actually, can you like lower the threshold in Twitter, like, or in Discord, so that it like picks up more sound, because it's cutting you out at certain points.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I have a gain on the microphone. Here, let me. Yeah, sometimes it does this.
Yeah, no, not a huge deal. I just noticed it was happening, and I want people to be able to hear you.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm bad at this. I'm bad at this talking thing.
Don't worry. Okay, good night, Kezbox. Thanks for coming by. So happy to see you. I fucking love it when you come in chat. Thank you so much for coming by.
Hi.
Angry Infidel says, yes, I like both of your teaching styles. I need to be told things Barney style. Damn TBIs and PTSD. Oh, I mean, I feel you. I have severe ADHD. So for me, learning things is like a complicated thing. And what I've been thinking about this a lot, of how I want to like make things parsable, and not only parsable, but also memorable. So good night, Kezbox. So I'm hoping, Angry Infidel, I'm hoping that I can continue to deliver very educational and fun to learn stuff. So here's a question. Here's something that I wanted to ask you about, and I know you got to go probably, relatively soon, but so I wanted to make sure I got to it. And if it's not a topic you're comfortable talking about, that's fine. But what is your feeling about stories of defectors? Like, what do you think about defectors? And like not each individual one, but what do you think about the sort of like business of North Korea defectors? Because I can tell you, when I was a right-winger, I was given a book by a friend that was called, I think it was called like, hold on, I think it was called, let me see, let me just double check. Yes, here it was. It's called The Aquariums of Pyongyang, 10 years in the North Korean something or other. And it was atrocious. It was in a concentration camp. I actually
love reading those books, because I like to know what language they use, because a lot of the language that is used is very targeted language to get people to feel things about Korean people. Because like the thing is like, if you really care about us, if you really care about our struggle, then you would push for unification. Right. Koreans say unification. We actually do not say reunification. Reunification is a non-Korean or a Western term, because our country doesn't need to be reunified. Our country was unified in like the 1100s. Like we are not just a nation, we are a people. Yeah. So we view it as unification, as in we just want to be together again, because right. The Civil War has ultimately like ruined everything. So that's just another thing that I like to say. Yeah. Another thing that I like to tell people is the ROK and the DPRK are just the state or Korea's state responses to U.S. imperialism. So they are not countries; they are just state responses. They are people responding to positions of power held by somebody else. So South Korea, for all intents and purposes, as a country, is capitalist and believes in sort of religious hegemony and culture because it was kind of forced to be that way. It just adapted because there was no other thing. A lot of Koreans are just submissive, or not submissive, but we like just kind of just do what we have to do to survive because that's all we've been told. Yeah. So that trauma from the occupation just taught us to go with the American example to be more successful. The North Koreans are defiantly against this as a country, quote unquote, because they view imperialism from the Japanese. Their version of the Japanese trauma is not sympathize but be against it. So that's why they are defiant against imperialism on all fronts. That's why they consider the US as an imperialist nation. So I don't like to view South and North as countries because they're not countries. I mean, I guess by UN, like even the UN charter. So like I would have to post this in chat or find it before I go. Mm-hmm. But there's a UN charter that was trying to set up South Korea as a country, and nobody signed it. People didn't want South Korea to be a country because a lot of people thought it was unfair to make a country out of an occupied space without having the occupiers leave.
Well, and wasn't the People's Republic of Korea like dissolved like days after by Americans? Like it was like the People's Republic was like Koreans came together and founded a unified government, and then literally with days later, America just came in and said, no, that's not legitimate, or else.
Yep. They basically have been deciding our entire fate since like the 40s, since the occupation. I would argue Korea is still under a U.S. occupation. I would argue that South Korea is a U.S. state, and I live in a U.S. and you live in the United States, which is a colonial country.
Yeah.
So I very much view my existence the result of imperialism. I am such an anti-imperialist, and I tote the ML line very heavily, not because I'm a tanky or a LARPer, or because I just hate America, because my very existence hinges on the absolute idea that America has just fucked my nation into the ground, like my entire like people group into the ground.
So here's a
question.
Like
and my existence is the result of this.
Here's a question. Do you think and this is only loosely related. This is more of a personal question for you. Do you think that perhaps the strategy at least on Anglo left Twitter is to maybe focus to move away from stuff like terms like ML or even arguably like anarchist, and instead say like stuff like I am an anti-capitalist, I'm an anti-imperialist, I'm like believe in intersectionality? Because to me what it seems like what happens, and this is just my observation from not being in these conversations directly but just seeing them, which is I see a lot of people get really hung up over the term ML, and it's stupid, but it's just a fact. So then, but the thing is, they're almost always on board with understanding and sympathizing with anti-imperialism, and it's almost like people like have a certain association with this term, and so their brain shuts off the minute they see ML or tanky or whatever. But then when they hear anti-imperialism, they go, "Wait a second, this is something I agree with," and then they might end up agreeing with you on 100 things. Do you see what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe this could be completely out of left field or not the right tactic. But maybe it's something that could be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I know that like Dario, rough Dario, but like he apparently is in like he's in Chud's kind of group of friends.
Yeah, I know Scuff Dario. We're gonna be on with him on Tuesday. So
apparently he is like he's part of the he's like part of the Democratic. He's part of like the Communist Party in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
But like he doesn't really act like one, as a party person. So I don't know. Like I feel that like me and him are both completely different wavelengths in terms of how we view communism.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because his perspective living in Denmark is different than mine.
And he could have also just joined. You know what I mean? He might have just joined 2 days ago.
I don't know. Like I just argue that like communists that are from the global south, like our idea of anti-imperialism is so much different than the sort of like white leftist or white western, and it like our corner is very loud. Like the majority of people on like left Twitter that get talked about and get like posts that blow up are white MLs or white anarchists or Western leftists or white liberals, the bread tube nerds. Not saying I dislike any of them, because they're all my friends and I love everyone a lot. Shout out to all the nerds that are friends with me. I love and respect all of you, but like I just, the one core thing that I wish they would all understand is like my perspective is going to be different than all of you, because I live in this intersectional being. Like, yes, I'm an American citizen. But I was from a country, and the country that I'm from is a direct result of this system. Like, yeah. And so anti-imperialism is my absolute number one. Decolonization is my absolute number one. Being, because I'm trans and a woman of color, like being intersectional is my number one. If you cannot do these things, I do not want to fucking interact with your leftist optics. If you don't consider like the fact that just like, if you want to vote blue no matter who because it saves everyone, you're missing how that has never protected minorities. The Democratic Party has never truly been there for us historically.
Now and that spins into an interesting
and I don't want to get into this too much because I have to go real soon, so we can actually talk about that. And like I hate talking about burning your bus because people call me a buster, and it's like, no, my line is just different. Because I'm not like, it's just because I'm from like, and maybe Dario might have similar feelings. Like they're from Yugoslavia,
Yeah.
which is also a country that fell apart because of imperialism, you know. And I have a lot of respect for Tito, and I have a lot of respect for the Communist Party of Yugoslavia. And like part of like the and I watched Democrats. I watched the Democratic Party bomb Kosovo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what they did.
Yeah.
And so it's just weird to me to have someone like Dario still want to vote for the same party and the same generation of people that bombed his homeland.
Yeah. Do you want me to explain my position on this? Because I actually did talk about this last night, and I think I've reached a level of messaging that can effectively connect with both sides of this disagreement in a way that like makes sense given our system. Do you want me to? Do you mind if I go off on that real quick?
Sure, but I really have to go.
Okay. Well, all right. Do you have 5 minutes? I can do it in less than 5 minutes. Is that okay? All right. Oh wait, I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
Sure, sorry.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
no worries.
I'm trying to type and.
Yeah, no. So here's what I'm thinking. So okay, I think every single person, including Dario, Vosh, Angie speaks even, fucking Vadim, all these people who've been arguing about this, American Johnson, everybody agrees that action is the way forward. We all agree. I can promise you every single person believes that direct action is the only real way forward. Everybody agrees on this, believe it or not, despite all sides of it. What has happened is that the Bernie or bust argument, in my opinion, became a vessel of misunderstanding. So
that's exactly what I said. Like every time I would try and bring Dario, he'd be like, I don't want to. You have to, because you're missing why people are upset. Reason.
I think, okay, here real quick, let me just give you a quick advice on your mic, and it might help. If you could turn down the gain on your mic itself and then lower the threshold in your Discord settings so that it doesn't cut you off, like at basically at any volume level, that might work perfectly. Because in Discord, if you go into your
1, 2, 3,
perfect, yeah, okay, good. It's not clipping you anymore.
Okay.
Amazing.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just that do you use like a Yeti by chance or something?
I have a blue Yeti.
Yeah, okay. I knew it. I could tell because blue Yetis are really weird about gain.
Yeah, they super are. I've been playing with this fucking thing. Yeah. Like every time I speak, I'm just like, fuck, I gotta fix it. Fuck, I gotta fix it. Fuck, I gotta fix it.
They're weird about gain. It's one of their weirdest things. In fact, I could go on about it, but I won't. But okay, here's what I was gonna say. So what I think is that everybody agrees that direct action is the answer. Everybody agrees that we can't just sit here and just vote, right? The position of the blue no matter who people is as follows. And I believe that I am being faithful to the camp as a whole. The belief of the blue no matter who people is that Biden will be an easier opponent, so we should support getting him into office at this point, because short of us being able to swing a like pressure on the DNC to get Biden out, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee whether he wins or loses. So with that fact in mind, we don't have a choice over the fact that, oh my God, thank you so much. Oh, Twitch Prime sub. I think that's my first Twitch Prime sub ever. Thank you. Thank you so much, Natalie Revolts. Amazing. So
I love Natalie. She's so sweet. So Natalie is like in the world. Like we had a really weird disagreement with some like personal drama, but like I do like her as a person. Like we've like squashed that beef. I hope so. I hope, like I was worried. She has always been a very big supporter of everything that I do as a person. She actually runs like one of the big sort of I know, thank you. She runs one of the big sort of like agitprop DPRK, like pro DPRK accounts. I feel like she runs like the best one because she's not LARPy. She just posts things. She just posts like pictures about like the DPRK and propaganda.
Natalie, join my Discord. You sound like you'd have a great time in my Discord.
Natalie never talks in Discord.
What?
She's like the shyest fucking person ever. Natalie. Yeah, no, I can't get her to talk. I think I heard her voice like once. Oh, she was on a Pros to the Roundtables. I'm calling you. Yeah, no, I'm calling you out on literally every fucking thing you do because I know you more than yourself.
Well,
dummy.
Here, let me finish my thought real quick on the blue no matter who thing. So
yeah, it's fine.
Blue no matter who. I genuinely think that this has been an example of how Twitter can like jam conversation entirely, because Vosh did a stream recently with the serfs, and he talked about this issue, and he quoted Marx directly about how political and electoral accelerationism never works, because if you skip out and you ensure that the worst person is in office, that person will crack down on leftist organization the hardest. Biden will not crack down on leftists nearly as hard as Trump in his second term. An unaccountable Trump will. So that's the perspective that I've been looking at it from, is one of strategy. Leftists will be able to build more organizations and will be more likely to be able to actually build a revolutionary movement under a Biden than we will be able to under Trump. As a result, I do believe that leftists should vote for Biden, not because they support Biden, not at all because they support Biden, because fuck Biden. Fuck Biden. I absolutely fucking hate Biden. But because smashing that moldy pumpkin will be 100 times easier than trying to deal with Donald Trump, who has currently banned immigration. Donald Trump represents accelerationism towards fascism. What we can do is, and again, I can go and I can quote, I can literally quote you the same thing, which I found very convincing personally from Marx, which was in his second edition, the second edition addendum to the Communist Manifesto. He talked about how this is the problem. He always supports economic accelerationism, strikes, things that make tension in the economic sphere, because these things lead directly to material wins for the working class. But the problem that you have is when you use electoral accelerationism, you ensure that the most right-wing, or not necessarily ensure, but you contribute to the most right-wing candidate coming into power. Now, I agree with you 1,000% that Joe Biden is a disgusting candidate. I think that everything in me recoils against him. However, I also realize that I would rather Donald Trump have a humiliating defeat, get kicked out of the White House, and then myself and all of LeftTube continue to do the ass kicking that we've been doing under since Obama. Like, the American left has blown up since Obama. I do not think that people will go back to sleep under Biden. Yes. Do I worry that there will be a bad response after Biden? Yes. But I think that we are not in the place that we can actually take over politics quite yet. So if we have a Biden in power, that will buy us 4 to 8 years of, look at what we've been doing. Look at how big the IWW is getting. Look at the Teamsters kicking ass on the East Coast. We are actually making wins for labor. And this is because instead of when we have a Biden like a Sleepy Joe in the office, the only people who are loud and talking are us. We, the leftists, we're the ones screaming about that shit. When they have a Trump in the office, it's fascists. They're winning people. People are going, the acceleration.
No, like, I agree. I just, I feel like this is a conversation that requires a lot. Like,
right, and that's my frustration. My frustration has been that Twitter has been going back and forth and misinterpreting each other. I bet that I could give this argument to any faction of left Twitter, and they would agree with me, because I didn't use any of the terms riding with Biden or Bernie or bust. The Bernie or bust thing, it became a it was like a mind poison. Everybody got stuck on that. And so what would happen is, I noticed this, and this is not critique of you, but I noticed this even in conversations you had, where somebody would go, well, don't you think that voting for Biden is harm reduction? And then your response would be, yes, but I don't believe in electoralism. And then, so then it becomes, then they're responding, they're arguing with not casting a throwaway vote to a shitty candidate that would be better than Trump. And you're arguing with you're trying to say, stop looking at electoralism as a solution. But those actually aren't in opposition to each other. You can stop looking at electoralism as a solution, and you can also and in fact, you can then go, aha, because electoralism is trash, my vote doesn't mean shit, so I may as well shunt it in the direction of the weakest candidate possible, so that I can, so that leftism can continue to build itself unmolested. And that is my approach to it, which is that I think that what the failure on left Twitter was an inability to recognize that both positions are actually in alignment with one another if you take away the surface argument. So that's my approach.
I totally get it. Yeah. I'm not for like whom. I'm not really for anything. I'm really just for I'm for like a workers' party. Yeah. I'm for like people. So like I very much am for I'm very much a bottom to top kind of girl. Like I want everyone at the bottom to ascend to the top through a centralized party structure. It doesn't necessarily like mean like fucking like Soviet Bolshevik style party. It just ultimately means that we get to control our destinies.
Yeah.
And then we get to assign political leadership after destiny is controlled. But that only needs to occur under like revolutionary conditions, which we are not in. Anarchists just disagree with this position because they're anarchists and they disagree with that. And I'm not trying to like, I would never force anyone at my hand to do the thing that I think is right. I just personally believe in this because I've seen its effectiveness and I've seen why this like works. So
well, here's my argument to that. And this is my anarchist argument to that, which is that revolutionary conditions are building in this country. And they are going to continue building no matter what.
I don't think that they're not building. I just think that like we're not at peak yet. Like we have to. This is
absolutely 100% agree.
We have to. We all as people, whether you're an ML, whether you're an ANCOM, an anarchist, a libertarian socialist, whether you're Bosch, whether you're me, whether you're you, it doesn't matter. We all need to. We need to be on the strategy the strategy side of things now.
Oh, that's all I do. That's literally all I think about anymore is fucking strategy. I fucking am so tired of moralism. It's the most.
I don't like moralism. I don't care about your moral argument for why we should, like when I'm saying, oh, you should be divided because like he would morally make the world better. I don't care about that. Like, what are you going to do in your country?
You have to recognize that that's not the argument I'm making. I recognize a lot of people now. Keep in mind, I never had a side on this issue. Literally, I was literally one of the only people on Twitter who was like, "This is the stupidest conversation I've ever seen." I've been saying that for like a month. Me and you and Chud and I think Lexi, Cyberwish Lexi gets a.
So I have to go. I really have to go.
No, that's fine.
If you gotta go, but I do want to ask you one. I do want to ask you one thing before we leave. Before we say goodbyes, are you excited for Chud Night on Tuesday? How do you think that's gonna go?
I think it's going to be a horrific mess. I can tell you.
Why is it me, you, Gushin, and Kamzat? Like what? Like are we the commies or the leftists versus like neolibs?
Yep.
That's why is Dario there,
baby?
Are you ready? Are you ready to win? Are you ready to fucking win?
Oh, we're gonna smash. So here's.
I'm gonna. Do you want me to LARP super hard?
No, please. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, wait. Maybe, but here's the thing. What I want us to do, what I really want us to do, and here's what I want us to come. How I personally think we're gonna win this thing, and we're going against.
They can't say mean things to us because most of us are like three of us all trans girls.
I mean, yeah, it's true. But here's the thing.
They're gonna. I just want to pull really bad punches. Like I'm looking at our lineup compared to theirs, and I'm like, what is some shit we can fucking say?
I'm gonna be really incendiary. Don't get me wrong.
Wait, are we gonna? Is this gonna be blood sport?
It's going to be blood sport. Yes. Like literally. Wait, did Chud do the meme with you when he invited me? He was like, Demon Mama, I have an offer for you. And he sends me a picture of fucking Morpheus with the 2 pills. And he goes, blue pill, I invite you onto a calm, chill Chud night with me playing Wormy in the background. He's like, red pill.
What did he say to me?
And then he's like, red pill, you come on with LSP and a number of other liberals and we hash it out blood sport style.
He was like, do you want to I said, do you want to have me on a spicy Chud night? Potentially, I'm organizing things. Apparently, Destiny likes you. I've heard, and then we talked about Vosh probably followed you on the back of the desk. We talked about how like everyone's talking about me for some reason.
Vosh and the Serfs both had good things to say about you. So hey,
I'm glad people like me because I feel like Juche Mama, a tanky LARPer extraordinaire.
Yeah, here's the thing. Here's what I would recommend. Okay, LSP. I like Dario, but I don't agree with him on almost anything. I do like him a lot.
I like Dario as a person. All his takes are hot garbage.
Yeah, I don't love his takes.
Hot garbage. All his takes are fucking horrendously bad.
So it's gonna be LSP Synthied.
They or she hates me because
they don't like me either. They're friends with LSP.
Holy shit. LSP likes me. LSP's just like, yeah, I've said some pretty fucked up shit to you, but like you're cool though. He loves tagging me and shit to be like, yeah, I know that one like brown trans girl that's like, you know, I'm an ally. See, look. I know this girl. This is the girl that everyone's quasi subtweeting. This is the girl. So like I'm abstained from being a shitlord. He does that shit.
You know what? Let's talk about this again. Let's talk about our strategies and stuff over Discord. Would you be free to talk tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah, we can do that maybe later tonight
Okay,
if I'm
cool.
around.
Because
I'll
that'd be
message you.
badass. Because I think it's gonna be really fun, but I don't want to spoil everything on stream in advance. Because people
Oh
gotta
my
enjoy the
God,
show.
oh my God. It's gonna be so
Oh,
bad.
I'm ready. I am so ready. Like,
I'm gonna get so baked, and I'm just gonna like if they start saying shit, I'm gonna fucking hammer at everyone.
good. Yeah.
I'm
The
fucking
one thing
ready.
I think that the one thing I want to make sure that this is what I want to be undeniably clear. And I think it will be clear because it's been clear in every single Chud Night that has had LSP and the liberal side, which is that the liberal side is in denial. They are in denial about the state of the world. They are in
Yeah, they
denial
are.
about the severity of things, and they are in denial about what is coming our way. And that is what I want to become abundantly clear. Everybody who's watching that, I want them to walk away going, holy shit, the lefties, they're looking out for us. That's what I want people to walk away with. Because me, that's me. I'm the fucking dark anarchist mama. I sit over here and I go, these motherfuckers, they're not fucking looking out for you. They're gonna keep telling you all this stupid half-baked bullshit, and we're here standing on the front getting hit by bullets and shit and whatever and getting screamed at and called names for you guys, for you motherfuckers. The audience is gonna come onto our side. On Tuesday night, it will be a definitive victory for the left faction of the new wave of
Like
Twitch.
I just like to be a representation of just like every fucking brown trans girl that doesn't have any like way to say anything, or any trans person in general that doesn't feel like they can sit in a room full of cis men and tell them to sit the fuck down. Like I very much view my position in the leftist sphere now as like a lot of people think I'm clout chasing. If anyone thinks I'm clout chasing, fuck you. I'm not clout chasing. I am here because I care about like bi POCs. I care about all those indigenous people that like got water cannons shot at them, and like fucking the Dakotas. Like it breaks my heart to like know that like hundreds of thousands of Americans would rather bomb Korea than like than care about whether or not like the people matter. You know, like
Yeah.
I just don't like seeing. We need a culture shift. Like there is so much like sexism and chauvinism and like hidden bullshit like within like liberal and left Twitter because it's led by men. And I just like want to be. And there's no trans representation other than like white trans people. Like I want to be in this space as just a big fuck you to like you haven't been listening to us. Like we might be the smallest minority like in your group, but we're the fucking loudest, and we just choose to not be loud because we have been like pushed down and not allowed to be loud, or we just have never been given opportunities because we don't optically look good for you. Having ContraPoints as an attractive white trans woman is way better than me, you know, because that's just how the world works.
I disagree. I disagree. For the record, I disagree.
Well, people think
the
that,
thing
though.
is, though, here's what I think. This is part of it too, which is it's a two-front thing, because yes, white, you know, traditionally attractive, or even, you know, within the realm of traditional attractivity, voices and people are always going to have an advantage in viewership, and as a result, as they grow, they're able to afford to learn more. So it isn't just that you know, ContraPoints is white and you know, a white, very beautiful trans woman. It's also that that advantage gave her a head up so that she could keep learning. And I genuinely believe that ContraPoints is an incredible artist, an amazing actress, and incredibly good at getting her points across. But I think there's like 100 of us like sitting around on left Twitch who also are really that skilled. We just haven't had the chance yet. But this is our chance, and our chance is coming. And you got to get to work, right?
No, I'm not going to work. I have to talk in an org meeting.
All right, go to your org. All right.
Okay, I'm so
and
sorry.
I'll talk to
Yeah,
you.
I
No,
love
no,
all of you.
no apologies. Go to your org, and we'll talk again tonight. We'll talk strategy for Tuesday, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right,
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Mwah.